It's time to talk a little state politics, and joining me now are my favorite political people, my political team I always turn to, and I like to call them political nerds from time to time.
Oh, we take that banner.
Is Rick Pluta and Zoe Clark, and they're the hosts of It's Just Politics on Michigan Radio. Hey guys, it's good to see you up here on Mackinac.
So
Hi.
good to see you, always.
All right, so let's jump into it.
Let's talk nerdy.
Let's talk nerdy stuff. But let's talk, because I love talking to you guys, just in terms of, I want to get the mood of what's going on in Lansing right now. I want to start with
Sure.
Lansing and the legislature, and where you see this new group of people. And Rick, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I mean, what we're seeing is a group of primarily conservative Republican lawmakers who are being called upon time and time again to spend money on things that it is not in their nature to spend money on, specifically related to the city of Detroit. We saw it with the with the grand bargain and the Detroit bankruptcy. Now we're seeing it again with the Detroit public schools and the bailout there and
roads.
and roads.
And
For
meanwhile,
roads.
they're like, hey, we got some social issues we want to talk about. And the governor's like, not with a 10-foot pole.
I think the
away.
governor, all the business people up here are very much of a singular mind on that.
Yeah.
And Zoe and I sat down today with the governor and asked him about this sales job that he has to do regarding the Detroit public schools, and the two systems, sort of like the GM, old GM, new GM,
Right.
old public school district, new public school district. Mayor Duggan talked about it too in his address to this particular group, and there are sort of three threads to the conversation. One of them is that they've got to convince lawmakers that not bailing out the school district would be more expensive than bailing out the school district.
Right.
Just how many legacy costs is the state on the hook for?
A lot of Detroit bankruptcy yet again. So you're seeing that parallel there as the
Right.
governor was talking about.
Another one is just the idea that Detroit public schools are too big and too important to fail. That we've got 47,000 students still in the district, and you've got to take care of them. And then the governor sort of dropped a new one on us today,
Yeah.
and it was what. You're all going to need something sometime.
It
and
was
a
a
few
very democratic message.
Mm-hmm.
He brought up the dredging of harbors from years ago when he took office, and he said, hey,
The
in
coastal
government,
communities,
we all need
yeah.
help every once in a while. So don't you want to help someone, because eventually the government might need to come help you? And
Yeah.
you're like, wait, I'm sorry.
Businessman.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, same old nerd.
Yeah, but I think it's very interesting too, because he's going to have to play some cards right, and there's going to have to be a lot of political cards played right, and it's almost going to be
governor
about
who-
priorities too. It's like, well, I'm going to trade
Yeah.
you this chip to get maybe roads done.
And
If
this
you
is
can
the
give me a
governor
little
Who came
he
into
doesn't
office
horse
said,
trade.
no,
Yeah.
he used to say he doesn't horse
have
trade.
to. You have
And
to
he's
like
finally getting that. And so that is why what Rick and I always say is, yes, the intra-party fight among Republicans, it's fun, it's sexy to report and to watch. But look at the relationship between Snyder and the Democrats. Because particularly for road funding, that is where he's going to have to
To
look
get to 56 votes, he is going to make up for all the Republicans who will not vote
Yeah.
for taxes or fees in substantial
No
enough
way, no
amounts.
how.
You're going to have to get Democrats to make up the difference, and they have a completely different set of wants
Yeah.
than the Republicans
Yeah.
do.
My question is timeline. What are they going to try to attack and achieve first? Because you all want it now, but is the battle cry for roads going to drown out a little bit what they need to maneuver for DPS? But I would argue that the timing for DPS is almost more urgent.
Well, the timing for the roads is House Speaker Kevin Cotter has said he would like to get roads done in June. That seems a little ambitious, but
slightly.
But he is also, opening the door a little wider to the fact that a revenue solution might be required. And certainly, we're talking about the same old ideas that have been rejected time and time again,
Yeah.
with one significant difference, which was the fiasco that was Proposal 1,
Yeah.
which seemed to really turn up the heat on getting something done on roads, and then allowing lawmakers to move on to other stuff that they may or may
And
not
I think
want
there's
to
an
do.
interesting dynamic about them, at least Meekoff and the state Senate, saying we're going to work through the summer. So giving themselves this time, and Rick and I have been joking, like, Most lawmakers probably don't mind that idea. They're like, yeah, let's stay in Lansing. I don't want to go back to district. There are angry
Those
voters.
angry constituents.
We gotta stay in Lansing. All right.
All right, so let's talk about Lansing in the bigger picture of politics. And we know that we just have a governor who just won a re-election, and he's going to be here for the next 4 years. But there's already that rumbling about
3 years, but
3 years. But where's that next arc coming from? Where are we getting that next leader coming from? Mayor Mike Duggan said emphatically yesterday,
right?
No, I'm not running. Don't ask me again. No
Quit
way.
putting me
no
in your
how.
polls. Enough. Take my
What was
name out
really
of it.
because he's never really fed that speculation except to not deny that it was a possibility.
Yeah.
And this time he came and said absolutely not. Like you said, take me out of your polls, just stop talking about it. And what he was doing was sending a signal that the responsibilities facing the mayor and his office right now in terms of dealing with the water system, dealing with the public schools are so big and so intense that even being speculated, having your next move being the subject of so much speculation robs from that.
Let's be clear, because as political reporters, that's what we would be looking at. Okay, if he is thinking even of running, how does what he's doing right now fit into it? And so by taking himself out now, we turn elsewhere, because as political reporters, then the vacuum
It's a different dynamic.
Exactly. So the Democrats.
And of course, there were a lot of other, Democrats, both on the island and off the island, who were like, "Oh, goody," because
I think Mark Hackle was doing a little dance
yeah.
So is that one of the only names, or are we looking in leadership circles? Who are we going to start to see emerge in the next year and a half or so?
I mean, look, this is absolutely a speculation game. So, Hackle is acting an awful lot like a candidate. We've all seen the billboards up I-75 driving to the island with his picture on it. Certainly, there is
Dan Kildee,
the congressman from Flint's name has come up. Federal prosecutor Barbara McQuade's name has come up. On the Republican side, Attorney General Bill Schuette and Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley's names keep coming up time and time again. And the problem is, as time goes on and people talk and speculate, more and more about that takes away from the conversations that Governor Snyder would like to continue having until his last day in office.
I still have some things to do.
In
the time that we have left, just a short amount of time, let's widen it out and take a look at the national perspective for 2016. What kind of role, Zoe, is Michigan going to be playing in the presidential election?
Well, I was just talking to the governor as we sat down with him this morning, and I talked to Lon Johnson, the chair of the Democratic Party. Look, Michigan for the past 6 cycles has gone blue. We are a blue state when it comes to presidential years. That does not mean that we are not going to continue to see, as we already have seen so far, likely Republican candidates
Republicans will be ambitious about Michigan until August.
Until about August. And Lon Johnson told me yesterday that he says it is fair to presume that we will see a visit from Hillary Clinton in Michigan absolutely by the end of the year.
And we're already seeing visits from Republican candidates. Jeb Bush in Michigan this week,
Lincoln, it's like every,
But Michigan may not be decisive in the general, but certainly with a March primary, that we could be a kingmaker in the primary, especially the Republican primary, after the early states weed out the
which is exactly
the weak
what we saw in 2012 when we thought, Michigan wasn't going to play a role, and suddenly it's Romney, Santorum, and Michigan was very big to Romney.
And also an interesting dynamic, too, if you're looking to put something on the ballot in 2016 in terms of turnout and who might be turning out.
And look at what we're looking at.
We could talk about that for 20 minutes when it comes
prevailing
to
wage, medical, or not medical, marijuana,
same-sex marriage, depending on what happens with the Supreme Court.
Civil rights laws.
Yes, expect it to be a ballot palooza again in 2016.
All right, well then I'll have to have you guys back and we'll have to talk about it a little more.
Looking forward to it.
Zoe Clark, Rick Pluta. Thanks guys so much.
Of course.